One of the Pirate King's companions, following the ship's flow, without a female protagonist, fruit development, just graduated Sanhao young man, after experiencing the reality of chubby beating, encountered a demon in this world and crossed the tribulation. While watching the excitement, he was unlucky enough to be struck by lightning and thus traveled to the world of the Pirate King. Are you going to kill me? Why did I kill you? Because you are a pirate. What's wrong with the pirates? Pirates are meant to kill. Who said that? Pirate King. I didn't say it. The previous Pirate King. Chapter 1. The New World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the vast and boundless universe, there is such a planet. The sea is the only unchanging theme since its birth billions of years ago. In this vast sea, countless legendary names and deeds have been left behind, and their stories have been sung to every corner of the planet, inspiring generations to face the unknown sea and set sail bravely. Times are changing, and the sea is changing. But the sea is still there, without joy or anger, without sorrow or joy, just like it was at the beginning. Quietly watching a group of creatures, standing on its body, issuing the bold oath that had been heard countless times before. I want to become the Pirate King, they said in unison. One Piece King. Seems a bit familiar. Yes, Pirate King. Because in this era, the name the Age of Pirates. The vast and boundless sea is extremely dangerous, but beneath the surging waves, it also hides its unique beauty, which has been the fundamental driving force that has driven people to set sail without hesitation for thousands of years. And our story begins with this sea that has been consistent for thousands of years. Starting from this sea area called the East China Sea, known as the Weakest Sea. Among the islands scattered like chess pieces in the East China Sea, there is such an unnamed and uninhabited island. The scenery on the island is picturesque and picturesque. The blue seawater shimmers under the sunlight, and the white beach is scattered with colorful shells and corals. The sea breeze blows gently, carrying the fragrance of seaweed and the singing of seagulls, making people feel relaxed and happy. On the edge of the cliff, a figure lay quietly, as if a part of nature, with a homemade sun hat covering his head. The green color looked somewhat unconventional, but it was enough to help him resist the scorching noon sun. The boy lay there with his hands resting on the back of his head, seemingly taking a nap or perhaps having a good dream. Beside him was a row of fishing rods, gently hanging down and swaying in the sea breeze, along with the hooks swaying in the clear and bottomless sea water. The picture is peaceful and beautiful. And in all things in this world, beauty is always fleeting. The same goes for now. The boy, who was immersed in the wonderful rest time of the afternoon, was suddenly awakened by a ringing bell. It turned out to be a bell he had placed on his fishing rod. Once a fish caught the bait, it would emit a sound to remind him to avoid missing the prey. After all, for him, fish is already the easiest meat to obtain on this unnamed island. The boy immediately jumped up with a carp, and the straw hat that was originally covering his face was roughly thrown aside. However, the boy didn't care. For him, food was the most important thing at the moment. It was not until then that he was able to see his true face clearly. His skin has become slightly black and shiny due to prolonged exposure to sunlight and seawater immersion, with a very healthy wheat color. His originally smooth face has become rougher due to the sun and sea breeze. The boy is about 1.78 meters tall, with clear upper body muscles and a lean lower abdomen where 6 abdominal muscles are neatly arranged. The hair that has not been repaired for a long time is already long and shoulder high. Although it was tied in an unsightly bun with a straw rope, the excess hanging hair still cannot conceal the fluffy and messy feeling. If a boy is thrown into a modern big city, there will inevitably be a scrutinizing gaze and an unkempt evaluation. Perhaps he will also be regarded as a vagabond. If he happens to appear in a live broadcast of a certain internet celebrity, he may even start a legendary life. But when you look down at this uninhabited island, there are no more of these. The boy at this moment is very happy because he can feel from the fishing rod that the fish he is hooked on is definitely a big fish. It should be the largest fish he has caught since he came to this world. This time, I won't be short of meat for at least a week. Ha 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 ha, the boy desperately used his strength, desperately pulling upwards, still rhythmically shouting the horn in his mouth. But soon, he realized that something seemed to be wrong. Because based solely on the weight transmitted from the fishing rod, it is definitely a big fish that is hooked, but this big fish has no signs of struggle, which means it does not have the feeling of wrestling with prey during normal fishing. And more like I caught a dead big fish, but due to its weight, the boy found it difficult to pull it up. After realizing this, the boy immediately relaxed his strength slightly and tried it out. After realizing that there was no pulling sensation from the fishing rod, he carefully poked his head out of the cliff. Good guy, it doesn't matter at first glance. Where did you get that big fish? It's just a huge wooden bucket suspended in the sea. Damn it. The boy, who had experienced ups and downs, couldn't help but curse and angrily threw the fishing rod to his feet. As a result, the rod suddenly jumped down, revealing that the waves were pushing the wooden bucket to pull it down. The boy was shocked and pale at the sight. He grabbed his fishing rod with a flying pounce and then tied a straw rope he carried with him to a nearby tree, finally letting out a sigh of relief. Although a wooden bucket may not be as good as a big fish, it is always stronger than nothing. At the very least, you can get a good storage container. Because this is a sunken area on the island, the boy often sees various miscellaneous things brought by the ocean currents, such as a blind box barrel, which is also one of the unavoidable ones. At first, the boy was also very excited, with a mentality of buying lottery tickets. He always felt that he could take a chance and turn his bike into a motorcycle. He fantasized about what divine weapon or legendary devil fruit he could draw from it. Besides, a box full of food was also good. But what about reality? He hasn't seen the divine weapons and demon fruits, and he doesn't know how long they have been stored. He has seen a lot of spoiled food. Although he lacks food, he hasn't been brave enough to eat everything. Sigh, I hope you have some good luck today. The boy sighed and started walking down. As mentioned earlier, his fishing spot is a cliff, about 4 or 5 meters high from the sea below. It's not a problem to use it for fishing, but if you were to forcefully pull a wooden bucket up, it would be a bit difficult for him to handle. The boy walked briskly along the small path that he had walked countless times, constantly heading towards the coast below. The grass shoes made of leaves and wild grass gently tread on the delicate white sand, leaving a neither deep nor shallow footprint. From afar, the boy saw the wooden barrel, which looked quite large and was constantly floating on the sea surface. It looks pretty good. The boy muttered and then walked over to salvage it onto the shore. The boy took off the handmade fishing hook that he knew how to get stuck on. He stood up the wooden bucket and reached out his finger to tap on the lid. The next second, the barrel exploded as if it had been triggered by a time bomb. Ha ha ha, finally saved. Chapter 2. Pirates. Wang Lufei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The boy was unresponsive and was directly hit by a cannon punch protruding from the barrel. He flew straight out and fell heavily on the delicate white sand, leaving a long mark on the plow. When the boy got up again, his right eye had become purple and blue, swollen as if it had been bitten by a wild bee on the island. You. Who are you? The boy struggled to open his intact left eye and looked back to his original position, only to see clearly that the creature that had just attacked him was actually a living person. A people growing out of the barrel. Aha! You saved me, right? Let me introduce myself. I am the Pirate King Lufei. Who are you? The figure that popped out of the barrel, wearing a straw hat, a red vest, and light blue shorts, slowly overlapped with a character in the boy's mind. Pirate King Lufei, so Lufei's surname is Wang. It seems that this is indeed the world of the Pirate King that has not run away. The boy didn't know whether to be happy or lament his misfortune, because he had truly fulfilled his long-standing dream and successfully traveled to a different world, but there seemed to be a small problem with it. Because he hasn't seen the Pirate King. Although he had been favored by his classmates before, when he discovered that there were over 1,000 episodes, no one could stop his determination to retreat. This can also be considered as lifting a stone and hitting oneself in the foot. If he could start over, he swore to read all those over 1,000 episodes of anime and comics. But obviously, this is impossible. Crossing Nature is not like those online shopping platforms, where players can still play for 7 days without a reason to return. Even if they do, it's already too late for boys. Because it has been almost 3 months since he traveled to this world and settled on this unnamed island. Carl, my name is Carl. The boy thought for a moment, but still said his name and then showed his kindness to the protagonist in front of him. Hello, Wang Lufei. Lufei. A big question mark appeared on Lufei's head. It was the first time he had heard such a statement, which made him unable to resist the idea of pulling the life-saving benefactor in front of him onto the ship. Because no matter how you look at it, the other person seems to have a hard time using their brain. After all, whoever hears the phrase, Pirate King Lufei, their first reaction should be Pirate King Lufei, not Pirate King Lufei. Why add strange surnames to others? However, in order to avoid misunderstandings, Lufei still touched his head and explained it very seriously. Not Wang Lufei. I am Munch D. Lufei, the man who wants to become the One Piece. The Pirate King. So it's like this. Carl nodded secretly, only to realize that he had caused an upset. As he said, he really thought the other party's surname was Wang just now, and he was roast that the name was really Dirt. So, are you a pirate? Carl asked in response. Yeah, I'm the pirate who wants to become the Pirate King. Upon hearing this, Carl's right hand slowly reached towards his waist and grabbed the small knife he had pinned to his waist, which was the only weapon in his hand. Because he has not read the original work of One Piece, he does not know what personality the protagonist in front of him is. Although he believed that the anime protagonists who could produce over 1,000 episodes were probably not some evil killer, otherwise they would have been banned long ago. But I dare not gamble. After all, even things like traveling really happen to him. What else is impossible in this world? If he is not traveling through the original work, but rather through a parallel world where the timeline forks, or if he is a fan, or if the butterfly effect caused by his travels changes the original plot. Although these may not sound very likely to happen, any chance of encountering them could potentially create a true Pirate King, Lufei. Although he knows that even with a knife, he may not be able to defeat the opponent, there are always ordinary people who dare to face the protagonist's halo through time travel. The small knife can at least add a little psychological comfort to him that is better than nothing. Speaking of which, he has been traveling to this world for almost 3 months. Based on his judgment over the past few days, he should belong to the ordinary category of time travel. Soul-piercing. It's also ridiculous to say that he was originally a newly graduated college student, in a period of confusion between college and work. However, on his way home from overtime that day, he suddenly heard thunder and lightning roaring in the sky. Looking up, he found that there were continuous bursts of lightning in the dark clouds. This reminded him of a ghostly video he had browsed on a certain website. He was about to take out his phone to record it and send it back online, but unfortunately, he was struck by lightning and his eyes turned black, leaving him with nothing to know. When he opened his eyes again, he had already arrived at this isolated island. And based on the remaining memories in his current body, he also learned some intelligence about this world, including that his predecessor died in a pirate attack and jumped from the ship into the sea to save his life. Of course, unfortunately, the predecessor was unable to escape in the end and drowned in the sea. In the end, he took advantage of it. And he also inherited the name of this body. Carl, for him, it is also a new beginning. It is precisely because this body died from a pirate attack that Carl's reaction was so intense. According to his memory, pirates are not a good thing in this world. He, who has not read the original work, does not understand why the author chose a villain to become the protagonist. Now, he only wants to live. The pirate's words. I saved your life. If you don't kill me, we can be considered even, right? Carl licked his mouth and said. However, these words made Lufei lose control. For the first time in his life, he felt that his brain circuits seemed to be unable to keep up with others. More precisely, he was left far behind. You saved me, why should I kill you? Lufei asked inexplicably, like a curious baby. Because you are a pirate. What's wrong with the pirates? Pirates are meant to kill. Who said that? What the Pirate King said. I didn't say it. Lufei pouted and hugged her shoulder, denying it with great displeasure. It's the previous One Piece King. One Piece King Roger. Oh, it's him. I don't believe it. But that's the fact. Who did you listen to? This is the fact. I don't believe it, I have to ask him personally. He's already dead. Carl couldn't help but burst out a few jingles on his forehead. He's been dead for several years. Huh. It seems like. Lufei still touched the straw hat on his head, not knowing what he was thinking. Chapter 3. I want you to be my partner. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at Lufei in front of him, Carl is full of troubles, but he doesn't know where to start roast. Is it true that the other party became the protagonist solely due to their mental disability? After pondering for a moment, it seemed that he couldn't come up with a solution. Lufei waved his hand, expressing his love for everything. Since he couldn't figure it out, he didn't think about it anymore. Forget it, don't worry about him. What he said is none of my business. But when he looked up, he found that Carl had already turned around and was about to leave the beach. Lufei quickly caught up with the situation. Hey, where are you going? You mind me? Can I follow you then? No way. Why? No why. Oh, Lufei let out a long sound. This made Carl think that the other party had given up the idea of following him, and he took a few more steps before turning around to check the situation. But as soon as he turned his head, he found that Lufei was about 3 meters behind him. When he saw him, he looked up at the sky very slowly, as if wanting to count how many birds and clouds there were in the sky. Carl. Hey, your acting skills are a bit too exaggerated. Can't you react faster? Carl, who was somewhat speechless, turned around and walked away, while Lufei quickly followed suit. So, a rather dramatic scene emerged next. Carl turned his head and Lufei stopped, looking left and right, pretending not to follow. However, as soon as Carl turned around and continued walking, Lufei would immediately follow. 7 or 8 times like this, it left Carl with black lines all over his head. Hey, do you think you're playing with 1, 2, or 3 wooden people? They all said don't follow me anymore. 1, 2, 3 wooden people. What is that? Is it delicious? Carl. Where did I mention food? Are you mentally disabled? Oh my goodness, who will save me? I can't eat it, it's not delicious either, Carl said weakly. Please don't follow me. But I don't know where to go. Lufei replied solemnly, dumbfounded. You can go out to sea. Going to sea? Yeah. Shouldn't pirates go out to sea? But my boat is broken. Carl glanced at the tattered wooden barrel behind Lufei and couldn't help but curl his lips. Sure enough, the protagonist is different. Do ordinary people dare to ride wooden barrels out to sea? Are you afraid that you have been living for a long time? I don't have a boat. You can wait here, maybe there will be oak barrels floating over in a few days. Can you go out to sea then? No way. Why not? Lufei thought for a moment and pointed to Carl. Because of you. Me. I have decided, I want you to be my partner and board my ship." Upon hearing this, Carl couldn't help but shout with black lines all over his head. "Don't make decisions for others casually. Ghosts are going to board your ship." "No, it's a barrel." "Yes, one barrel is not enough, two are needed," Lufei said thoughtfully. "Don't worry, I will find a suitable oak barrel for you." "Carl. Are you really listening to me?" Carl was so angry that he turned his head and walked away, following the principle of keeping his mind clean. However, he didn't take 2 steps before realizing that Lufei was following him again. "I beg you, can you stop following me?" "No way. I've already decided to take you aboard." "But you don't even have a boat. Didn't you say there would be wooden barrels floating over here?" "I think I'm pretty lucky. I'll probably be able to save up 2 oak barrels soon." "I'm really impressed." Carl's mentality exploded. "What exactly do you like about me?" "I'll change it, can't I still change it?" Upon hearing this, Lufei actually became serious and said, "I think you're talking very interesting. I've made up my mind, I want you to board my ship and become a missionary." "Carl. Don't randomly assign positions to people. Also, what kind of ghost is a missionary? Do I just look like a godly person? Moreover, what kind of bizarre evaluation criteria is interesting speech? It's too outrageous, isn't it?" Unexpectedly, Carl shouted out his inner roast loudly. After that, he realized that he was ashamed. But secretly looking at Lufei, he found that the other person seemed not to be listening to him at all. Instead, he solemnly broke his fingers and muttered, "There are 10 companions in total, 1 missionary, 1 chef, and 1 sailor. Oh, by the way, we need to add another musician. Why have you already included me? Hey! Can you ask for my opinion?" "Ah! Didn't you agree?" Lufei scratched his head. "Where did I agree? If you don't agree, I'll keep following you." Lufei threw out a ultimate move. "You. I." Carl was gasping for breath and could only turn his head and leave. "Forget it, if you want to follow, just follow. Anyway, I won't board your ship." "Listen up, Carl. Even if I'm trapped on this island and drowned in the sea, I definitely won't get on your boat." "Oh no, it's from an oak barrel." Unconsciously, Carl set up a famous flag. After burying his head and walking for a while, Carl's mood finally calmed down. Recalling everything that had just happened, he realized later that his emotions seemed to be somewhat off. If it had been before, he would never have complained so loudly, nor would he have had so many retarded conversations with each other. "Is it because I have been on the island for a long time without anyone speaking?" Carl couldn't help but reflect and turned his head to secretly check if Lufei had followed, only to find that the other party had picked a colorful mushroom from somewhere. At this moment, he was opening his mouth, which was clearly beyond the human realm, intending to solve it. "Wait, that's poisonous." "Stupid." Carl immediately rushed over and knocked off the mushroom in Lufei's hand, but the other person seemed to have a very slow reaction. He still bit down with his big mouth, holding his own fist in his mouth and foolishly chewing it. Ah, this feeling. Carl. Is it true that he was chosen as the protagonist because of his intellectual disability? Who can tell me, isn't the Pirate King passionate? How could it become a funny and brainless fan? Feeling somewhat disgusted, he helped Lufei pull his hand out, and Carl was once again so angry that he turned his head and left. In just one morning, this scene has happened countless times. "I'm so hungry I can't do it anymore." Lufei's voice came from behind, followed by a muffled sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. "Carl. You really hooked on me, right?" Chapter 4. Carl's Outlook. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Despite being very reluctant, Carl still couldn't bear to leave Lufei in place. After hesitating for a while, he carried Lufei on his back and returned to the cliff where he used to fish. He put away all his tools and finally finished work early today. Although there was no harvest, at least there was still some food stored at home, so there was no problem holding on for a few days. After walking for over an hour, Carl, who was panting heavily, flew back to his cabin in the woods with his back on his back. It is said to be a house, but at best it is more appropriate to say it is a matchbox. After all, Carl has never learned how to build a house in his past or present life. At most, he has watched a few episodes of documentaries on wilderness survival, and it is already very good to be able to build it like this. For Carl, having a place to live is already great, at least it can bring him some sense of comfort and security on this deserted island. By the way, how long has this guy been hungry? Carl looked at Lufei, who was sleeping soundly on the simple dirt bed, and couldn't help complaining about it. Due to the times when he was born in his previous life, the country had already basically eliminated hunger. Therefore, he only read about hunger and dizziness in some books and movies. In this life, since he woke up, Lufei was the first living person he encountered, so this kind of situation was naturally the first time he had encountered it. Alas, someone said that speaking is actually good, but as for being a partner or something, let's forget about it. Carl sighed. Although joining the main character group or something was very tempting, he had already realized after experiencing the vicissitudes of society and the cruelty of reality in his previous life. Since God has given him another chance, he cannot waste it. He must live his life comfortably, lying flat and lying down. As for fighting and killing, let's forget about it. He is the one who has no strength to bind the chicken, let alone killing. He is a law-abiding young man in the new era. As for pirates, let alone pirates. Although he did not have a satisfactory life before, his moral education did not fall behind. Although he had fantasized countless times about becoming a chivalrous and righteous hero, he still couldn't bear to attack innocent people. The Confucian pinching ribs and the legalist locking throat that ordinary people joke about may be referring to him. Although he was aware in his heart that he was currently in a new world, in which those former standards had no binding force on him. But some things are not something you can think of and do. After staying on this isolated island for almost 3 months, Carl spent most of his time daydreaming, so he also wanted to understand something. I understand why the ruling class chose Confucianism back then, and why the great Qin dynasty chose legalism so quickly. Because in this new world, when the old legal provisions become a thing of the past and lose their binding power, the inconspicuous Confucian education becomes the biggest shackle that restricts them. The shackles of physics can be broken, but the shackles of thought are difficult to erase. Even if it's done over again, even if it's crossing a new world, its impact is always there. I still cannot make myself a decisive person. That's also why he was so resolute in rejecting Lufei's invitation at the beginning. Being decisive and imposing may sound good, but for Carl, just think about it in his dreams. In these days, he has also thought about his future and where he wants to go. Through the memories of the original owner and some short videos he has watched in his past life, he has roughly pieced together the worldview and current situation of this world. Pirates, the mainstream of the current era, is not simply called the age of the great pirates. If there is a person in this world who is favored, then that person must be a pirate. As written in Journey to the West in previous lives, the entire story of Journey to the West is a microcosm of the rise and fall of Buddhism. When Carl read Journey to the West in his previous life, he thought to himself, why don't those Taoist masters stop him even though they know it? In summary, it is just a transformation of the will of the heavenly way, which cannot be violated by human beings. Applying this set of rules to the world of One Piece is probably the same. Even if there is a change in the will of the heavenly way, the last darling of this era, the person who handed over 2 eras, will definitely be a pirate, the last glory of a pirate. And who this person is, I believe everyone already knows it well. Carl looked into the room, behind the half-closed door, the figure sleeping soundly. If it weren't for him, Lufei, as the protagonist, would undoubtedly become the last pirate king. As for what the next era will be, it's unknown. After all, to his knowledge, it seems that the One Piece manga had not been fully updated before he was struck by lightning. Although Carl guessed the general trend of the world, he still had no intention of getting involved. To be honest, it was the impact that his previous life had on him. After experiencing the dual torment of society in reality, he had already seen through and understood that he was never the son of fate, not a peerless genius, at most an ordinary person. How can you make an ordinary person who already has self-awareness compete for that unique position and become the center of attention? Living a simple and plain life is already impressive. The option of pirate has been passed out, which is in contrast to the Navy. Carl is not very interested in this option either, because he has also watched some short videos about the Navy in his past life, which roughly means that the Navy is extremely dark inside. Carl is quite open-minded about this point. After all, if the Navy is not dark, how can the protagonist's brightness be highlighted? After all, the protagonist cannot be portrayed as a major villain, as it can harm children. Therefore, the darkness and corruption of the Navy can only be used to highlight the justice of the protagonist as a pirate. For Carl, being in the Shanghai Army means having an iron rice bowl, which may sound good, but the reality may not be as good as imagined. If you happen to run into a villainous boss, or run into the main character group, or go and hunt down pirates, either one is a precarious task. For Carl, whose ultimate goal is to live well, this is clearly not the best choice. In his opinion, the best outcome would be to do some small business, open a small shop, earn a little money to eat and die. Carl is still very confident about this point. Apart from anything else, as a man from my empire, it's not too much to open a restaurant or something in a different world. Oh, by the way, it's best to open the store at the Navy headquarters so that you don't have to worry about being robbed by pirates. Chapter 5. Wild Boar Night Wang Lufei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When it comes to opening a restaurant, it seems like being a logistics navy is also good. As long as you cook every day, you don't have to go to the battlefield. Even if you are against the main character group, it's not his turn to go to the battlefield. If one day, he would definitely loudly ask his boss. Do you want me to go? Have all your navy died? Slowly pulling his thoughts back to reality, these were the two paths Carl had planned for himself. No matter which path it is enough to enable him to achieve an epic level of achievement in this world, such as slacking off and waiting for death. After all, in this heinous era of pirates, just living is already very powerful. Well, the fish should be around now. Carl looked up, intending to see how much his grilled fish had reached, but as soon as he looked up, he found himself completely empty in front of him. Where did my big fish go? Vigilantly looking to the side, he indeed discovered the thief who was stealing fish, sitting next to him enjoying his meal. Lufei. When did you wake up? Let go of my grilled fish. Wow, it's really delicious. Lufei threw the clean fish bone he had gnawed onto the ground and wiped his mouth with some satisfaction. Thank you for your hospitality. Who's going to entertain you? Don't be so self-conscious, okay? Oh, Carl, get on my boat and become a chef for me. How about your grilled fish? It's really delicious. Lufei was clearly somewhat unsatisfied, searching around. Is there anything else? It seems like I haven't had enough to eat. Who's going to be your chef? Didn't you just become a missionary? Although Carl roared wildly in his heart, he just coldly replied with no response as he looked at Lufei's expectant gaze. Due to someone's fault, there was no harvest today, only these are the things. If we eat again, we will be hungry tomorrow. Someone. Is there anyone else here? Lufei scratched his head. Where is he? Carl. You really have no self-awareness at all. Due to both freshly grilled fish being killed by Lufei alone, Carl, who had limited food, could only choose to go hungry. However, this was not a big deal for him, as in just a short while, he was already full of anger from Lufei. Hey! Where are you going? Watching Carl stand up, Lufei immediately asked. Go find something to eat, don't you think everything you eat falls from the sky? Is there really such a place? I really want to go and see it. Carl helplessly helped his forehead, so he shouldn't have spoken. Following the route in his memory, Carl kept moving in a direction where there were several fruit trees bearing many red fruits, similar to apples, but tasted very different. Although it may be a bit sour, it is always stronger than nothing, and it is only on trees. As long as you can climb up, it is very easy to obtain food. Shoo, wait a minute. Carl suddenly stopped and simultaneously pressed down the carefree and humming Lufei. Because in his field of vision, a group of wild boars appeared, 1 big and 3 small, totaling 4. It looks lucky, Carl said with a surprised look in his eyes. On this island, wild boar meat can be said to be a rare delicacy. Even if Carl has survived here for so long, he has only eaten it 3 times, mainly because the wild boar is too powerful for him, or in other words, the animals in this world are suddenly outrageous. Even relying on wisdom and traps, Carl can only hunt those small wild boar cubs, and he also risks being pursued by their parents for revenge. And right now, there happen to be 3 little ones. If everything goes smoothly, they can have extra meals tonight. Wow, it's a wild boar. I really want to eat it. While Carl was contemplating the hunting plan, Lufei was already drooling. She'll have something to eat later. You can stay here, or find a place to hide and climb up a tree. I'll give it an arrow later, and we'll have wild boar meat to eat. Do you understand? Carl warned Lufei, afraid that his impulsive behavior would ruin his good deeds. However, after speaking for a while, he didn't receive a response. He turned his head and realized that Lufei, who had just listened attentively and obediently, had disappeared. Carl, who realized something, immediately stood up and looked at the group of wild boars, only to find that the 3 piglets were already lying on the ground, unaware of life or death. As for the big one, it was constantly expanding in his field of vision. That's right, the wild boar is charging towards him like crazy. Damn it! Carl couldn't help but curse, grabbed the nearby tree and climbed up. The crazy wild boar couldn't escape and could only bully someone who couldn't climb the tree. And we also have to worry about whether this tree is thick enough or not, and whether it will be knocked off. Carl, look at me, look at me. Lufei's voice echoed in Carl's ears from time to time. Halfway through, Carl turned his head and realized that Lufei was actually riding on the back of a wild boar, playing the role of a wild boar knight. Judging from his expression, it seemed like he was still enjoying it. Hurry up, Lufei. This is very fun. Carl, come down and play with me. I don't want it, you bastard. Carl cursed and quickly shot up 2 more pieces. Fortunately, the wild boar's attention was completely drawn to Lufei on its back, so it didn't even notice Carl on the tree and ran back and forth in the nearby forest, trying to shake off Lufei on its back. And Lufei was like a cowboy from a previous bull riding competition, holding onto the neck of a wild boar with both hands, even if his whole body was thrown into mid-air, he wouldn't let go. Several times, Carl noticed that the other person was like a rubber band, thrown in front of him, but his hands were strangely stretched and finally pulled back onto the back of the wild boar. The chaotic scene lasted for about half an hour before the wild boar suddenly plunged into a tree and knocked itself unconscious. Ah, finally won. Lufei wiped his sweat and stood on top of the wild boar, laughing smugly, without paying any attention to the warning from Carl. Quickly dodge. Nanny. Duong. The sudden blow hit Lufei to the ground, and Carl also fell heavily. Hey, are you okay? Carl quickly ran into the smoke and dust, wanting to check Lufei's condition, but found that the opponent was lying on the ground intact. It's okay. I'm a rubber man. This level of attack won't harm me. It's okay. Carl breathed a sigh of relief. Rubber man, devil fruit, isn't it? Yeah, I'm the rubber man who ate rubber fruits. Here, it's like this. So I can eat a pig in one bite. As he spoke, Lufei tugged at his mouth, making it as big as a trash can. Carl. You only have food in your mind, right? Chapter 6. Two Children Debating Thieves, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How's it going? Am I really amazing? On the way home, Lufei carried the big wild boar with a proud expression on his face. Amazing, amazing. Carl weighed the 3 little wild boars hanging on his body and said something that was not against his heart. He originally only wanted to get one to improve his life, but Lufei was unlucky and went straight to the door. However, Carl wouldn't mind having too much meat. Then be my partner. No way. Carl shook his head and refused. Even if you can beat a wild boar, I won't join you. Why? What's there and why? There must be some. Why do you want to be a pirate? Because I promised a man to become the One Piece King. Is it just an agreement? Otherwise. Lufei still looked carefree, as if becoming the Pirate King was as simple as playing house for him. Do you know how difficult it is to become the One Piece King? Mind him. Lufei shook his head and pointed to the sky with great ambition, because since the day I set sail, I have been determined to become the Pirate King. Even if we lose our lives for this, we will not hesitate. Is it a promise to risk your life? You're really young. Carl shook his head with a bitter smile. Little do you know that sometimes living requires more courage than death. I don't understand, Carl. You're really interesting when you talk. Anyway, I won't stop until I fall down. Our wills are different, so give up. I won't board the ship with you, Carl refused again. You are a pirate, you want to become the pirate of the Pirate King. And I won't become a pirate. Why? What's wrong with pirates? What's good about pirates? Carl couldn't understand why the other party insisted on becoming a pirate, just a promise. Does it have such great value? Moreover, how much binding force does the agreement have when young and ignorant? Pirates can find many companions, have their own boats, and have banquets with everyone. What's wrong with that? Not a pirate, you can have like-minded partners, your own boat, or have a banquet with friends. Pirates can also sail on the sea to search for the legendary treasure. One Piece. The identity of a pirate is not an admission ticket, and one can pursue these things even if they are not a pirate. Carl shook his head and continued, and when a pirate is also worried about the Navy's pursuit, why add burden? During their conversation, the two had already returned to their previous cabin. Putting down the wild boar, Carl took out a dagger and began to deal with it, while directing Lufei to move some firewood and build a barbecue grill. The two of them divided their work and cooperated step by step, but during work, the conversation never stopped. If pursued by the Navy, then defeat them, Lufei said. Pirates are meant to be pursued by the Navy. But they are also parents' children, representing each family. It may be just a simple punch for you, from thinking to punching in less than a second, but it can shatter several families. I don't know how many parents stay up all night, and how many children have become orphans. Ah. Is that so? Then I won't kill them in the future, Lufei said hesitantly. But if you don't kill them, they will also kill you. What does that matter? Since you choose to go out to sea, you need to be aware of losing your life. Even if you don't kill it, there will always be other pirates who will kill you. There are thousands of thieves in the world, what are you doing? That's their business. Lufei rubbed his head, feeling a bit big, and his interest in Carl increased a bit. But some of them, perhaps because they heard about your story, firmly chose to go to sea, either kill or be killed, and you also have joint responsibility. Ah. I don't understand. Just like you made an agreement with that person to become the Pirate King, he is your guide, and your actions are also closely related to him. Oh, although Lufei let out a long voice, seeing his puzzled expression, he clearly didn't understand. There's no way, Carl can only change the angle. Since you said you want to be a pirate, I'll come and ask you. Then you ask. After listening to Tian Shu for a while and finally understanding a sentence, Lufei finally put on a serious expression and sat cross-legged on a stone, pressing his knees with both hands and grinning his mouth wide. If my answer satisfies you, will you get on my boat? Perhaps. Carl didn't say it to death. So let's get started. Since you want to be a pirate, you must go out to sea. Where does your ship come from? Is my boat? It was sponsored by a big guy. But I lost it when I encountered a vortex before. So what are you planning to do now? Lufei looked at Carl with fiery eyes, and he was so scared that Carl quickly explained. It's all said that I don't have a boat, and even if I have a boat, I won't give it to you for free. Ah, then go find a kind-hearted person. Carl. Do you consider others to be fools? There aren't so many kind-hearted people in the world. Then go to the market and buy a boat. Buying things requires spending money. Do you have any money on you? Carl looked up and down at Lufei a few times, roughly estimating the other person's value. He estimated that his whole body was not worth as much as his small knife. It seems like there isn't. Lufei felt a bit distressed and pondered for a while before suddenly realizing, I'm a pirate. Can't I just go grab it directly? Carl. You just remembered that you were a pirate. Carl has become somewhat helpless towards the guy in front of him. How could the other person's reaction be so slow? Although what he said was already so obvious, it took him half a day to walk around and get into the trap he had designed. That's amazing. Carl shrugged his hands. Pirates are just going to grab it. As pirates at sea, you are not involved in production and will not contribute even a little to this world. And everything you need, ships, knives, even food and fresh water, will not fall from the sky. What should we do then? We have to go grab it. Carl's face showed a faint smile. But those things are also the materials they rely on for survival. If you rob them of their money, they may die from the most common diseases tomorrow because they cannot afford a doctor. If you rob them of their food, next year when they encounter a famine, there may be thousands of people starving to death. Chapter 7. Two Children Debating Thieves, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Where are you robbing money? You're clearly taking their lives. Even the worst pirates have the consciousness to sacrifice their lives, and how can ordinary people who are dying not fight back with all their might? Conflict arises like this. Where there is conflict, there will be casualties. Lufei, even if you can restrain yourself, you can't control everyone. At least until you become the Pirate King, you can't save everyone. How distressed. Ever since encountering Carl, Lufei clearly felt that his brain was not enough. It was clear that he had been through this for so many years before, so why hasn't he been able to do it today? Then as long as you don't rob ordinary people, just rob those villainous pirates. Guess where those pirates' treasures came from? They couldn't have been scraped from the sky, right? It was also snatched from ordinary people. This time, Lufei learned to answer quickly. That's right, if you rob them, they won't be able to survive anymore, and they can only go and rob ordinary people. Things like pirates can only swing their knives at weaker people. What about you? Lufei, why do you want to become the One Piece? What I'm asking is something beyond the agreement. At that time, as the strongest in the world, will you also swing your butcher's knife towards the weak and ordinary people? The little thief slaughters a village, the big thief slaughters an island, and the Pirate King slaughters the whole world. I wouldn't do that. Lufei shook his head. Although I can't understand what you're saying, I wouldn't do that. Even if what you say is true, others don't think so. Other pirates will still do that. Why care about others' opinions? We are all ourselves. Why live according to others' ideas? Do things according to their will. Lufei was puzzled. Even if all the pirates could burn, kill, and plunder, I wouldn't do that. Because I know that doing that is wrong. Yeah. Why judge yourself with a secular perspective? Carl muttered to himself, yes, I'm just stunned. As he spoke, he looked at Lufei on the other side of the fire and smiled, saying, Lufei, you're really different. I seem to know why I chose you. Aha. Choose me. I can't understand you anymore. Carl, what a strange thing you're talking about. Do you have it? Of course. I always feel like you don't seem to be from here. Nanny. Carl was taken aback and his heart paused for half a second. But before he could smell it carefully, he heard Lufei mutter to himself. What you said, it's my first time listening to it since I've grown up. Although it sounds reasonable. Everyone seems to have gotten used to it. As you said, pirates are meant to kill, they are meant to rob, pirates are meant to search for treasure, and correspondingly, the Navy is meant to pursue pirates. These things have been like this for so many years. That's why I said, you don't seem to be from here. Otherwise, how could you say those words? So it's like this. There was a hint of strangeness in Carl's eyes, and it wasn't until this moment that he realized that the foolish boy in front of him seemed not to be a fool, but the more a man knows, the more he is inclined to be modest. Of course, it is also possible that the blind cat simply bumped into a dead mouse. Just think of me as having a dream. Carl doesn't want this topic to continue and prevent his identity as a passerby from being exposed. Although he doesn't think the other person can guess, what if? Are you dreaming? I often dream too. In my dreams, there are endless grilled meat and many friends. Can't you not mention the food? Carl reluctantly changed the topic. Your answer just now counts as passing the level, but I still can't agree to it. Why? There's not so much why, it's just that I don't want to. Carl shook his head. Although your answer exceeded my expectations, it's just that. Even if I consciously brutalized everything, the world may not be as bad as you think, but it's not as beautiful as you think. Lufei. In my opinion, you are like a child growing up in an ivory tower. There are only beautiful things in the world, and even if something doesn't belong to the ivory tower appears, you can still use your past experiences to cope. I have to say, you are indeed very talented. But that's just it, it's not enough. Do you know why I'm on this island? Before Lufei could speak, Carl continued speaking. Because the ship I was on was attacked by pirates, all my relatives were killed. Only I jumped into the sea, and although I managed to escape, I also landed on this deserted island. This time, Lufei was unusually silent, just silently poking the fire with a branch and listening quietly. Do you know the sound of a sharp blade piercing a person's chest? The dagger in Carl's hand was directly inserted into the heart of the wild boar. When the dagger was pulled out, blood immediately flowed like a pillar. It's similar to this sound. Carl said calmly. The wild boar is fine, at least it died in its sleep, while those people watched helplessly as their companions tragically died, feeling the passing of life and powerless. You should know that even if stabbed by a knife, a person will not die immediately. Before death, they still retained consciousness and the ability to think. Lufei, what would they think in those few seconds? The youngest child on that ship is not half as tall as you. Carl's tone was frivolous, as if he was telling a joke, but neither of them could laugh. With just one blow, my head was chopped off. While speaking, he had already finished dealing with the big pig, and then casually grabbed a little pig and stabbed it in the other person's neck with a knife. The vitality of wild boars is very tenacious. Even unconscious piglets wake up under the stimulation of pain, constantly howling and screaming, causing birds hundreds of meters around to fly and reverberate in the forest for a long time. Lufei, do you have a bigger knife? It's too noisy. Carl smiled and looked at Lufei. Lufei stood up in silence and walked quietly to Carl, punching him out. Then, under Carl's gaze, another punch hit the continuously howling piglet, who immediately fell silent. It was unclear whether he had been knocked unconscious or killed. Can't you take it anymore? This is a pirate. I just talked so much nonsense to you. But this is a pirate. Chapter 8. Carl, your dream, I've memorized it for you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Carl lay on the ground with a large letter on his back, constantly panting and spitting blood from his mouth. Suddenly, he saw a shadow enveloping his eyes, and it was Lufei. What? Are you going to kill me? Carl thought the other party was planning to kill him and silence him, but he didn't expect the other party to pull him up. I understand what you mean, Carl. No, you don't understand. No, I understand. Do you still want to be the Pirate King? Of course. Not only do I want to become the Pirate King, but I also want to drag you onto the ship. You still don't understand, pirates are all meant to kill. And I can't do it. Carl shook his head. You probably don't need a useless person who can't even kill pigs easily, do you? What's the matter with that? I haven't killed anyone either. Just knocked them all unconscious. Take out those murderers. Ha ha ha, I dare not kill. What kind of pirate are you? Carl laughed, Our Lady cannot be a pirate. Are you planning to die? As you said at the beginning, give up your life. Don't you know? Life is the least valuable thing in this era. Why do you sit on that supreme throne with the cheapest chips? Then bet everything on me. As long as you're stronger than them all, that's good. Lufei rolled up his sleeves and showed off his muscles like a bodybuilder. Strong enough to knock them all unconscious with just one punch, that's good. You can't beat everyone. Who can say for sure about this kind of thing? Even if you defeat everyone and become the One Piece King, what then? One Piece King is ultimately a thief. Everyone will fear you, curse you, and see you as a demon. So what? Since I've taken this path, I don't care about others' opinions. Lufei stood up, squeezing his waist, and reached out his hand to Carl. So, Carl, become my companion. Looking at the figure in front of him, Carl's heart shook for the first time. No need. Returning to his senses, Carl slapped his flying hand and got up to continue burying his head in handling the prey. As I've said, I won't become a pirate. Just like the promise you made to become the One Piece King, I also promised someone to become a good person. Carl's pupils reflected a blazing fire, and between the flames, a face appeared faintly, a memory that did not belong to this world. Upon hearing these words, Lufei finally understood the other person's meaning. The agreement is a powerful force. If someone else said this, Lufei might have given up, but unfortunately Carl was too fond of him and his speech was particularly interesting. Those views are all unheard of by Lufei-chan. Lufei sat down next to Carl and began to scratch his ears and cheeks, pondering for a long time before finally uttering this sentence. As long as it's not a pirate, then that's okay. You can be a non-commissioned member of my ship. Just say you're the hostage I forcibly took onto the ship. Carl. Don't be so outrageous, okay? I'm talking about willpower. Do you understand willpower? Who can you deceive with your formalism? Then there's nothing I can do. Lufei was very distressed and sat down on the ground. So, after leaving, will you become a navy? Navy. Most likely not. Don't you really dislike pirates? It's really annoying, but I can't beat them. Carl pursed his lips. There's a saying in my hometown that goes very well. If you are poor, you will be good for yourself, if you are good, you will benefit the world. What does it mean? I don't understand. That is to say, if I were a weak chicken, then all I had to do was live my own little life well, just like me now, Carl patiently explained. And if I had the ability, as powerful as you, I would have to help more people, like you now, who have hunted so many prey and even shared it with me. Oh, I understand. When I become the One Piece King, I will be the most powerful person in the world, said Lufei. That's right. I will help more people then. That's right. Give more wild boars to everyone in the world to eat. Carl fell to the ground in an instant. What the wild boar did to provoke you? Carl immediately roasted when he got up. What about you? Lufei asked, ignoring Carl's roast. What? What about your dreams? My dream. Let's just hang out and wait for death. What I really hope for now is to open a restaurant at the Navy headquarters after going out, earn some money, hang out and wait for death, without worrying about pirates coming to burn, kill, and loot. You don't know, there are pirates everywhere outside now, maybe just the Navy headquarters should be safer. As he spoke, Carl seemed to have thought of something happy and joked. If you get caught then, I can still bring you food. How about a roasted wild boar? Okay. Then I'll eat 10, oh no, it's 100 roasted wild boars. Good, good, good. If I could live to that day, even if I were to lose everything, I would make you have a full meal. There is a custom in my hometown that says you must have a good meal after cutting off your head. That sounds great. But that's not what I'm asking. What is that? Your dream. That's my dream. But this is your poor dream, what if it's achieved? It's that dream. Xia. Carl shook his head helplessly, but seeing Lufei's serious gaze, he couldn't help but feel lost for a moment. Yeah, what about da? All along, he seemed to view himself with the principle of poverty, living with the mentality of one person eating enough and the whole family not hungry. It seems like I never thought about what would happen if I reached it. Help the whole world. What is your dream? I never thought about it. Why never thought about it? Are you afraid? Or accepted reality? Accepted, are you ordinary or mediocre? Is it the time to find that the salary is pitifully low after finishing college? Or when I was forced to hide my past ideals in my heart for the sake of life? Carl can't remember clearly anymore. I don't know. Carl still smiled, just a bitter smile, not even realizing it himself. With a smile, tears flashed in his eyes. However, Lufei sensed it. Then think about it. What do you want that kind of thing for? It's nothing to do with me anyway. I definitely can't reach that level. Then leave it to me. Lufei stood up and said loudly with a serious expression, then please tell me. Chapter 9. Only partners and dreams, don't let go. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Anyway, I have already admitted that you are my companion. Whether you get on my boat or not, I have already admitted it. In this world, there are only partners and dreams. It is absolutely not to be let down. So, tell me your dream. When I become the One Piece King and the most powerful person in this world. Let me help you realize that dream. Lufei. Carl stopped and stared blankly at Lufei with his back against the fire in front of him. At that moment, he seemed to see the other person shining. At this moment, he seemed to understand the reason why the other party became the protagonist. It's not because the author chose just because he is here, the protagonist should be him. My dream, countless memories flashed through Carl's mind, and these fragments eventually merged into a determined gaze. Then please help me end this damn era. Ha ha ha, is the era of the great pirates coming to an end? It's such a wonderful dream. Lufei laughed with one hand covering his face and the other covering his abdomen. Just listen. It has already made me tremble all over. Carl, you're not an ordinary person. You're a strong person recognized by Lufei. I promised you. When I become the One Piece King, I will personally announce the end of this damn era. Just like Roger the One Piece King back then. Carl. Your dream. I've memorized it for you. This is a promise between men. Lufei's eyes burned with fiery fighting spirit, his left hand took off his straw hat, and his right hand extended towards Carl again. In the name of the future pirate king, munch D. Lufei. Bet on it, the glory of the straw hat. Don't talk big, have you figured it out yet? To become the pirate king, all you need to do is defeat all the pirates, but end this damn era. The whole world is your enemy. Carl lowered his head and cursed loudly. Isn't that just right? How can one be called the strongest without defeating the whole world? You don't understand. I don't need to understand. I just need to move forward and rest until death. Are you not afraid? Not afraid. If it never comes back. I'll never come back. It's really like. Carl let out a faint sigh, as if he saw the shadow of another person in front of the energetic boy in front of him. That's the one who has already died. Oh, myself. The already dead heart in my chest suddenly lit up again, as if it was shining again, or as if it had not died completely, just waiting in dormant. Even Carl himself didn't know that tears were already streaming down his face. As for the rest, Carl can't quite remember. He only remembers two people chatting very late, talking about tens of thousands of stars climbing into the night sky, talking about the 4 wild boars that came in and the last pig leg that was left, talking about the 2 of them didn't even return to the room, so they lay by the fire and fell asleep soundly. No one remembered what the last topic was, and who said the last sentence. I only know that it was a collision of the thoughts and wills of 2 young people, a symphony of dreams and reality amidst the crackling fire. Although there was no alcohol, when the 2 of them recalled that night, they both felt a hazy drunkenness. When the exhausted night's fire slowly extinguished due to the lack of new firewood, the rising sun cast a slightly chilly glow, and the morning dew patted against Carl's brow. The boy who was reborn opened his eyes. Subconsciously wanting to rub his sleepy eyes, he realized that his right arm seemed to be gone. He turned his head and saw that Lufei had used it as a pillow and slept there all night. Lufei, thank you. Carl whispered a word, then carefully withdrew his arm and walked back to his cabin in the forest, suppressing the numbness. Sitting on the uneven grass mat, Carl felt a little dazed and recalled last night, as if it was the most peaceful day he had ever slept in this world. As soon as I looked up, I saw several wooden carvings placed on the handmade shelf. These were all carved by himself with a knife when he had nothing else to do. The carvings were all common deities and Buddhas from his past life. Because he was very interested in this traditional culture before, he knew a lot about it, and his family also collected some. But when it comes to carving, it's still his first time. Although the carving isn't very beautiful, he can still roughly tell who it is. As the old saying goes, a sincere heart naturally connects the mind. This is also what Carl started doing only after realizing that he had truly traveled through time and didn't have the sky-shattering golden fingers in the novel, and even ended up being stranded on a deserted island at the beginning of hell. People, in dire straits, always have a spiritual support. Although he is also an atheist himself, this does not prevent him from doing these things, just as passing the time and giving himself a hope. The wish to return to the original world after praying for several months did not come true, but it made Carl wait for Lufei, the son of fate in this world. Is this the inspiration you gave me? Carl doesn't understand. The Buddha statue naturally won't speak, just silently watching him. If you really have spirits, why would you leave me here alone? If you really have spirits, why is there so much suffering in the world? If you really have spirit. Carlton licked his slightly dry mouth, then help me once. Even if it's only this time, it's okay. Carl knelt down respectfully and gave the Buddha statues he had carved with his own hands. The statues kowtowed their heads but hesitated to lift them up. After an unknown amount of time, when Carl stood up, the hesitation in his eyes had been replaced by firmness. He took out a stone tool resembling a hoe from the corner of the wall, peeled off the grass mat, and smashed it heavily onto the soil bed made of soil. Suddenly, dust splattered. But Carl didn't care at all, as if his eyes were red, he kept smashing until a crisp sound came. Then he threw away his hoe and took out a wooden box from the damaged soil bed. Opening it, a strange-looking fruit lay quietly inside. The fruit is not big, about the size of a fist, and appears purple overall. The surface is covered in many strange patterns, and it looks similar to the apples we usually eat. It is precisely in the world of One Piece that countless people flock to, even risking their lives to compete for the sea treasure. Devil fruit. Ha! Carl, what are you doing? Is there anything delicious in your hand? Chapter 10, Then let's have a big scene. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. It seems that he heard some movement, and at some point, Lufei also appeared at the door, poking his head towards the box in Carl's hand. He thought Carl had hidden something delicious himself. But when he saw clearly what was inside the box, he was scared and jumped up in place, hitting his head hard against the ceiling. Ouch, my head. Lufei. What are you doing? Is that the devil's fruit? I should be, but I'm not sure either. Because this is also my first time meeting. It's a bit similar to what I ate. Lufei looked at it and seemed to recall some bad memories before continuing. It's very unpleasant, very unpleasant. Is it very unpleasant to eat? Even 10,000 times worse than the worst food. Lufei said exaggeratedly, then looked at Carl, are you planning to eat it? Yeah, it's already decided. Carl grinned. In fact, there is a reason why he didn't choose to eat the demon fruit after receiving it for so long. As an important component of the One Piece's power system, the price of devil fruit cannot be underestimated. Even the most useless devil fruit can be sold for a considerable price. And this fruit, in fact, is the start-up capital that Carl left for himself to open a restaurant. Perhaps many people may not understand, why don't you choose to eat such good things? With strength, one can earn more money and become stronger in the future. This may sound like a good choice, but there are also risks, as Carl does not have the devil's fruit illustrated and is unaware of the power contained within this fruit. If it is a powerful fruit, such as the natural demon fruit eaten by the 3 major naval generals, it will naturally make a lot of money like winning the lottery first prize, but it may also be some useless fruit, such as the animal dog fruit in watchdog form. Of course, some may argue that risks come with opportunities. But for the same multiple-choice question, everyone's choices may be different. To put it another way, it's like in a previous life when you suddenly won 10 million yuan in a lottery. So how will you spend this money? Do you choose to invest with this money, use it to make money, and earn more money, but also bear the risk of not even losing your underwear? Or do you deposit it in the bank, earn interest every month, and live a life that may not be wealthy, but you don't have to rush for life? Or could you open a small shop for yourself, not striving to earn much money every day, just finding something for yourself and enjoying leisure? Everyone has different choices, and it's not easy to judge which one is better or worse. Before encountering Lufei, Carl clearly had his own idea, which was to sell the devil's fruit and exchange it for money to open a restaurant at the Navy headquarters. If it were another world, he might choose to use this money to travel to various places and see scenery he has never seen before, but in this world full of pirates, let's forget it. He is afraid of being cheated before he has spent all his money. And besides that, there is another reason. That's why Carl believes more in the theory of fate. In his view, since the devil's fruit is the secret treasure of the sea, it must be related to the sea and the era of the great pirate. If the vortex of this world is compared to a huge magnet, then the devil's fruit is undoubtedly all kinds of iron blocks. As long as you eat it, you will inevitably be drawn into this vortex. That is to say, Carl believes that if he eats the devil's fruit, no matter how he chooses later, he will set sail like countless young people of this era, whether it is becoming a navy, a pirate, or buried at the bottom of the sea. This is an inevitable fate, and it is clearly unacceptable for Carl, who has already made up his mind to lie flat. So he hid the fruit in the bed and swore that he would never eat it until the last moment. But right now, he's going to break his rules. Is it very unpleasant to eat? Well, it's really unpleasant. Lufei said seriously. But compared to the hardships we may face later, what's the point of being unpleasant? Carl had already made up his mind and picked up the devil's fruit to observe. You're right, Lufei. Hey. So, you agreed to board my ship. Don't be too happy too early, it depends on whether it gives face or not. Carl gave him a white glance and raised the demon fruit in his hand. Let it decide whether I deserve to be your companion or not. You are my partner, I have already acknowledged you, so there's no need to decide anything else. But how am I, who is so weak, worthy to board your ship, said Carl, with a blazing fire in his eyes, shouting loudly, Lufei, did you forget what you promised me last night? We have to be enemies with the whole world. Only by becoming the strongest can we achieve everything we imagine. I will become very strong. I will become the strongest one. Lufei said, Carl, you don't have to do this. Eating the devil's fruit means you won't be able to swim anymore. And this thing really tastes terrible. Lufei looked serious, I really didn't lie to you. After chatting all night last night, Carl seems to have been used to Lufei's brain circuit, so he doesn't talk about it now. If possible, I also want to become a strong person. After all, that's my dream. If it's a powerful fruit, let's move towards that goal together. If it's a garbage fruit, then please, with my dreams, resound through the entire ocean. Lufei. As he spoke, Carl's gaze decisively bit into the demon fruit in his hand, while constantly praying in his heart. If you really have spirit, please help me this time. An indescribable odor instantly filled Carl's mouth, and almost every muscle and cell in his body was expressing an unpleasant taste. However, he still resisted the urge to spit it out, biting down one bite after another. In the end, the whole person knelt on the ground, tears streaming down. Lufei. How's it going? Lufei kept watching from the side, anxiously asking. You're right, it's really unpleasant. Carl leaned aside. What fruit is it? Lufei asked after him. He had already understood the other party's will and knew that if the fruit was not good, the man in front of him would really entrust his dreams to him. And he really doesn't want to miss such a good partner. Superman series mechanical fruit. God, you are indeed watching me. So. Let's have a big scene. Captain.